Hey guys, thanks for tuning back into the channel today. Today we're going to talk about how to use xTool Creative Space, and I'm going to do a little walkthrough on how to download xTool Creative Space, how to get into the software, into the program, a little bit of a how-to tutorial on how to use the program and what are some of the key features that you might need to know as a beginner, and then also how to connect xTool Creative Space to your laser. xTool Creative Space is a processing system platform used for all xTool engravers. It's really a great platform that you can use because it's free, easy to download, and really user-friendly. There's also some other platforms that you can use such as Lightburn, but this is the one that I like to use for my xTool engraver. So we'll start off. Here's how you download xTool Creative Space. I've just went on Google and typed in xTool Creative Space download, and it's usually going to be the first link that pops up. Once you click on it, it will bring you to the official xTool website. So here it shows smarter, easier DIY projects with AI, and there is some AI, artificial intelligence, included in xTool Creative Space. So I can click download, and it'll bring me to the bottom of the page, and it shows xTool Studios that I can download for Windows, Mac OS, which is for Intel chips, so that would be like a MacBook, or Mac OS for Apple M chips, so that would be more for a mobile device such as a phone or a laptop. So you can click whichever one you have. I've got a Windows PC, so I can click that and then go through the process of downloading xTool Creative Space, accepting the specific permissions that it asks for. It's really easy to download. You just follow the directions on the screen. And once you have it downloaded, you can either find it here on the search bar at the bottom of your screen, or if it pins it to the home page of your screen, you can click on it there as well. So just double click to open it. Once you open up xTool Creative Space, it'll bring you here to this home page. Here you can see some prime projects, so that's just recommended projects that maybe many people have used over the last few months. Some recommended templates. These are different templates that xTool Creative Space provides that you can click on. Some of them you have to purchase, some of them are free. And using these templates, you can create pretty awesome projects like the ones you see here. But for this tutorial, we're just going to basically go over how to start from scratch. So you can create a new project either here using the plus new project, or this green plus here at the top right corner that says new project. You can log in too before you do that. I'm not currently logged in, but it really doesn't make a difference until later on in the video when I talk about how logging in helps. It also may be beneficial before you started to look at this xTool Academy. It kind of gives you a brief overview of how to use Creative Space as well, just kind of some tips and tricks. So let's get started using a new project. So once you bring up a new xTool Creative Space blank project, I would consider this somewhat similar to Google Draw or Canva, if you've ever used either of those two platforms before. It's pretty self-explanatory, but you might need just a little bit of help to start. So I'm not going to go in depth on anything. I'll just try to show you a low-level tutorial on what it is and how to get started. So here you start off with a blank canvas. If you want to change the name of your project, up here where it says Untitled, you can right-click, click Rename, and then title it whatever you want. So we'll just title this one Test, since that's what we're doing. You can also have multiple canvases, kind of like having multiple sheets on Microsoft Word. So maybe you have different layers of your project and you want 3 different layers. You can make 3 different canvases, rename each one of them, engrave each one of them. That way you're not having to go into a new xTool Creative Space project every time you're wanting to create a new layer. So I'm not really going to worry with that right now because it's not something you'll need unless you're doing layered projects, which are a little bit tougher. So that may not be something that a beginner would do. Okay, so starting off, we're going to process on a flat surface. There's multiple different surfaces you can do, such as the chuck roller attachment, the regular roller attachment, screen preparation, which is something I've never used, and a slide extension, which pretty much just makes your engraver bigger. The roller and the chuck roller engraving attachments are great if you were to use tumblers, mugs, Christmas ornament rings, I mean, there's plenty of different items that you can engrave with those, but for this tutorial we're just going to use a flat surface. Okay, to start off with, here on the left hand corner we can see we can insert images, and once you click on that it'll just bring up your documents to insert an image. Make sure that your images are dark, that they're able to be engraved easily. A lot of people like to engrave pictures or like photos of their family. It's a little tough sometimes because it's hard to differentiate what's in the foreground and what's in the background in a photo. So it takes some practice before you can get good at that. And you might have to change the layering and the background of your photo as well before you start. Because first photo I did, I had to remove the background completely before that I could even start engraving on the photo because it just didn't look good. You can insert text by clicking on this text box, and it'll give you a little cursor, and you can type whatever text you would need by just clicking on your canvas. Pretty easy. You can change your font, you can change your text type, make it italicized, bold, whatever. Change your size, the orientation of your text, and more. So that's pretty self-explanatory, just like it would be on a Microsoft Word document. To remove things, what I like to do is just click off of it and highlight it, and then click the backspace or the delete button. Next up is shapes. These are just basic shapes. We've got a line, rectangle, or circle. Up next we have a vector. I can just make points with the vector and make whatever shape I would like. I like to use the vector sometimes to just close in shapes that are not completely closed. Or like in this case, if there was a shape that they don't have listed, I can make it real quick using the vector tool and then engrave it. So I don't particularly want that. I've highlighted it all, hit the backspace, and then delete it. Here are some more shapes. I like these because there's a lot of different ones you can choose from, like basic shapes, borders, plants, animals, festivals, patterns, parts, and then just some generic other. So let's click on other and see what they've got for us. So maybe I'm an outdoorsman and I'd love to engrave this image of a kayak. So I can click on it, and here it shows my kayak. We'll go a little bit in depth with this kayak and what we can do with it. So right now you see it's going to engrave this image. What that means is your engraver is going to go back and forth just like this and engrave all the way around this image so it'll be dark on your piece of material. Pretty much all engraving does is burning on the top layer of your piece of material to make it a little bit deeper and make an indentation where you can see the image that you're trying to process. You can also score this engraving, so see how it was filled in and now it's not. So what scoring is going to do is just kind of briefly score around the outside, so it's going to be a lot thinner on your piece of material. Or then finally you can cut, and that pretty much does exactly what it says. Scoring and cutting is not much different. The only thing is cutting allows for a lower speed and higher powers. So that way when you're cutting into your material, you want a high power, so your laser's as high power as it can go, and then the slower it goes, the more likely it is to cut through your material better and cleaner. So you can see here power percentage, it goes from 1 to 100. 100 obviously is powerful as your laser will go. Certain lasers are different. You have anything from a 5-watt laser to a 40-watt laser, maybe even more than that. So it just depends on what type of material you have and what type of laser you have to determine what type of power you need for your engraving. And then also with speed, it's measured in millimeters per second, and you can go really slow or really fast, and the faster that you go, the lighter your engraving will be. You can make multiple passes on this engraving. So like if I'm going to cut through something, what I normally like to do on my xTool D1 Pro is use cut. I would like to do 100% power, 7 millimeters per second, and 2 passes. That way it cuts all the way through the material, but it also doesn't leave terrible burn marks, something that I can go back later and maybe stain or paint over. This is what I like to use when I'm using basswood material. So that pretty much shows the speed and the power and the processing system for xTool Creative Space. So now let's finish up going over this sidebar. A grid array pretty much does what it says. Once you select your image, you can create a grid array making multiple different images of the same image. So like, let's say that you have 4 or 6 different pieces of material on your engraver platform. You can then engrave all of them at one time because they're all side by side. This is not something that I've ever really used before because I'm normally not trying to make it in bulk. But if you've got a camera, it makes it a lot easier. Or if you're creating items in bulk, you can use the grid array. I can also make a circular array, which is pretty much the same thing, but in a circle. The materials test array, I have to add a different image to be able to show you that. So let's here add a little rectangle and remove the kayak. So I can create a materials test array, click done, and make it quite a bit smaller. So what it does is it shows different speeds and different powers to find out what the perfect speed and power is necessary for your engraving. So it's going to engrave all these little rectangles starting off at 10 speed and 10 power. So it's going to be very light as far as power goes, but it's going to also be very slow, so that'll make it darker. Or here it's going to be very fast and very light because of the low speed and the high power. So this is going to be your lightest, this is going to be your darkest at 100% power and 10% speed. Very powerful and very slow. So you can just pick out which one looks the best and then continue engraving from that. This would be something that would be great if you're about to engrave something expensive like maybe a Yeti cup and you just don't know what speed and power to use. So you can use one, see what looks best, and then go from there. So now I've got my kayak back and I can continue. Code generation just brings up where you can create a QR code or a barcode using text, something that you can scan. This would be great for retail businesses or for some small vendors that are just looking for people to scan their QR code. I think this video here kind of shows best of what smart nesting is. If you have a bunch of different images, you can highlight them all and click the smart nesting button, and it'll make them all together and lined up pretty, kind of organize your canvas. Measurement measures 2 areas between shapes, so it's pretty much a distant measurement. This is great to make sure that the area that you've got between your 2 shapes is not too big to fit outside of your engraving. And lastly, here on the applications tool is the map designer. I talked about earlier about having to log in. Using the map designer tool, you can use some of your xTool Creative Space credits, which you have if you log in. The only bad thing about it is if you run out of credits, then you have to purchase more or create xTool Creative Space videos to get more credits from then on. But the map tool is kind of great if you're going to make a Valentine's Day present or a wedding gift or something like that. You can use the map tool to pinpoint a location. So there's great gifts to be made with it. Next up is the templates. It's very similar to what I showed you there in the beginning of the video. There's a lot of different templates that you can choose from. Here are just some of them at the very top. Some of these templates are free, some of them are not, and you can change them however you would like. So as it's coming up on the different seasons, you can click on whatever template you're trying to find. You can also use AI here and put a description of whatever you're trying to make and change the style of whatever you're trying to make. So if you want stripes, Fibonacci, line icons, or any of these over here on the left, such as creating a logo, blade cutting, screen printing, colorful printing. So it's just a lot of cool things that you can use there, but like I said before, credits are required for it. I only have 12 credits right now, and each image normally takes 2 or 3 credits. So it's not something I like to use very much. I usually use a AI software on another website and then just transport it over to xTool Creative Space. Lastly, here on the bottom, I've got a select tool where I can select my image. I've got a grabber tool where I can move around my canvas. And then I've got a layer tool where I can see all the different layers. So like here are all the different layers that are on this kayak. If I want to remove one of them, I just click the hide and unhide button. This is great to see the different layers, and maybe you want to make one darker and one lighter, or just get rid of one altogether or lock one. You can use this layers tool. Okay, that's pretty much all the left sidebar. Now let's go over how to make your image bigger or smaller. You can do the old-fashioned way by using the arrows here on the side just to make it bigger and make it smaller, or you can use the W and the H here on the top bar, W being width, H being height. So right now this image is a square, so if I want to make it bigger, I can make it 6 inches instead of 4.8, and there it's bigger. Using this aspect ratio here, if I click it, it turns it off. So if I want one side bigger than the other, you can see how it changed it so it's no longer a square. I normally don't use that, but I could see how somebody would need to use it. Then also at this X and Y at the top, it changes the X or the Y axis of where your image is located. So if I wanted to go to the left a little bit, I could put 2. Down a little bit, I could do 7. So that just kind of briefly shows this top bar. There's some other different things that you can use here, but as a beginner, it's not something that I would worry about right now. I've got some other intermediate videos that can kind of get you into another step on your laser engraving processing journey. Next up is this unknown materials guide. I can click on that, and there's a bunch of different recommended materials that you can use, and it'll give you the speed and the power that's recommended by xTool Creative Space to make the perfect engraving. So like, let's say I need different types of wood. I can use the recommended because there's walnut, there's plywood, there's beech wood. There's just so many different ones to choose from. You can click on whichever one and it'll give you a speed and power recommended to make the perfect engraving on that said piece of material. So that's a somewhat new feature that I think is awesome. Now to connect your engraver to your processing system, I can click this little button here that looks like 2 half arrows that says switch device / connect device. So right now I don't have anything connected, so I can hit connect device, and now it's searching for a USB. So a USB is normally provided when you buy your engraver. If you have the USB plugged into your computer and into your engraver, it'll find that USB. You can find it through Wi-Fi, through an IP address, or through Ethernet. Usually I like to use the USB just because it's the easiest, but all you have to do is plug it in. It'll say xTool D1 Pro there, or whatever type of engraver you have, and then you can hit connect. So it's pretty easy. Once you have it connected, you can hit process. Here for the process, it shows you the amount of time estimated for it to finish engraving. Then you can also change the origin point of where your engraving starts. Normally it starts at the top left corner, but I like to start it in the center so I know exactly where the center of my piece of material is, so it will look centered on my material. One way to ensure that it looks good on your material is to use this framing button. I can slow down my framing or speed up my framing. Normally the slower the better, and what it'll do is go around the outside of the engraving to show you that it is inside your piece of material. Framing is just pretty much testing it without actually starting the engraving. I've got some more videos on how to frame better and a little bit more info on framing in some of my other videos, so go try to check those out. Whenever you've framed, you've got the speed and power that you want, you've got the origin point set, and you've got the size of your image set. You can hit start and it will start engraving. So that's pretty much everything with the processing end of it. So now let's go over some of the settings. Using this X here at the top, I can come down to settings. Pretty much all this is up here is stuff that we've talked about. File just lets you open new projects and save your projects. We know how to edit using copy and paste on your computer, arranging it, bringing it front or back, or changing the alignment on the page. Object just lets you group it or adjust your image. Pretty much all of this here is in the other boxes within your XCS. So either here on this left sidebar or on the top bar. So let's go over to settings. Here under the settings, you can change your unit from inches to millimeters or millimeters to inches. I like to use inches. You can change your pressure, which I've never worried about. You can change your canvas, whether it be auto snapping or not. Precise vector path, I've never used that, and I've never changed the display fill. Auto snapping is something pretty cool that I'll go over here in a minute. You can insert hotkeys, and you can change your vector quality, but I think you would always want to use that as high. You can also change some of your file settings that I've never worried about. You can change your developer mode. Again, I've never worried about that. The only other thing I worry about here in the settings is that your software is up to date. And it looks like I actually have a new version to update. I'm on version 2.7.22, but it looks like version 3 is new and has just came out. So that's something I'll have to update and maybe make a new video here in the near future on. So you just hit update and follow the prompts and update your engraver and update your processing system. So what auto snapping is, what I just talked about, so I can move this image and you see how it kind of snaps to the middle here using those blue lines. If I see that it's snapped, I'm right there in the middle of my canvas. So that's pretty much a low-end overview of xTool Creative Space, kind of everything that you need to know just to get started. If you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments section, and please subscribe to my channel so you can see some other great laser engraving content. I make quite a few videos just to tell you how to use xTool Creative Space. Please just like this video and ring the bell for more alerts when I post a video. If you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments. I try to answer them as quick as possible. And there's other people in the xTool and Creative Space community that would love to help you as well. So I hope that you found some benefit from this video, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Happy engraving!